I'm going to do a talk in my car about car culture. So hello, and why am I in my car? Because we're going to talk a little bit about car culture, and because I can't do anything without getting in my car unless it's in my yard or in my house. So I'm going to be quiet while I back out. Have to pay attention. We have a little turnaround in our driveway so I can back into it before I pull out because we live on a busy highway. One of the reasons that I would like to move to a country that has great public transportation like France, which is where I'm headed, is because of driving culture, because they have such good public transportation that we don't need to have a car as long as we live somewhere that we can walk where we're going. So that is the main reasoning for my wanting to move to France in particular, because their train system and their public transportation system is just second to none. It's fantastic. I'm sure there are other countries in Europe especially that have just as good public transportation, but it's more difficult to get a visa there. One of my second, third, fourth choices, if France ends up not working out, is that I'm going to be going, my ADHD does not work for talking and driving at the same time. I'm having a conversation with a friend. So right now, what I'm doing is I have to take a few packages to the post office in town. I live about 5-6 minutes from the post office, but I have about 4 packages to take, which means I couldn't stuff them in my mailbox for the postmistress to come and get. So I need to drive them to the post office, spend a few dollars on gas just to get to the post office and back. But that's just what you got to do when you live outside of a town and have no public transportation that's of any value inside the town, really. So we're driving now to the post office, and then I might have to run another errand or two while I'm out. Might as well if I need something. But one of the things I wanted to talk about that just gets really tiresome here is that you have to drive to get anywhere. You have to drive to go to the post office. You have to drive to the grocery store, pretty much everywhere, especially where we live, because we live on a busy highway and there are no sidewalks. I could potentially walk 1.5 miles or 2 miles to the grocery store if we had walking areas, but it's just too dangerous. And everything is far, super far. Everything in the US is just spread out. And they are starting to build communities that are more walkable, where people can walk out of their apartment and go to the grocery store or go to the corner market or wherever. But those neighborhoods are expensive, and most people are completely priced out of them. In fact, in Durham, North Carolina, that has happened. The entire city center has become this mecca for yuppies and startups, and the prices have gone up so high that the people who lived there before, mostly black people, who lived there and who owned homes and who had businesses there, have been pushed out because everything's gotten too expensive for them to be there. Their joke is, you guys think it's revitalization, but we call it relocation. Going through a school zone, making sure there are no children anywhere. I forgot, school is back in. I usually don't take this route when school is back in because people line up on the street to go pick up their children at school. And so you get stuck in a herd of people who can't get into the school parking lot yet. That's just an aside. So where was I? All of the walkable places to live, and most small towns in America are still pretty spread out. The population might be low, 2,000, 3,000, but a 2,000 person or 3,000 person town like the one I grew up in, still spread out. So you can't really walk much. We did all the time when we were teenagers, but if you're going to the hardware store, that's slightly outside of town, so you have to drive to get there. As opposed to a town in France that's, say, 2,000, 3,000 people, they're usually much more compact, and they usually have what you need in the town. Not always, But we plan to probably settle in a town that's more like 100,000, anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 people, because those towns usually do have not only walkability, but good public transportation. For example, Avignon in France is one of the places we're looking at. And Avignon has a tram. It's small. It's not that big a city, but it has a 5.5 kilometer tram, and then plans for in the next few years to build another tram going the other direction. But you always have access to transportation if you need to get 5.5 kilometers to the other side of town, or you can just walk out your door and go to your local, as I said, your local corner grocery. So that's one of the reasons why we're moving, because we don't want to have to get in our car and drive everywhere. Pausing you because I have to go deliver my packages in the post office. Okay, back in the car, getting ready to leave the post office and head back home. I don't think I have anything else that I need to do right now, but rest assured, we're going to get home and I'm going to decide to fix dinner, and I'm going to realize that I'm missing some key component. So my husband or I will have to get back in the car and drive back to the store. This is the ADHD brain on driving and talking. It used to be worse when I lived in Missouri, because we lived in town. We bought a house in town for a while, but in town is relative. You still had to get in your car and drive to get to the grocery store or anywhere else, because we were at the edge of town and it was a very long street to get back in. And again, half the time there were no sidewalks. But for a while we lived so far, I forgot. The school zone. Thank heavens there's a street right here. I can go the other way. Remember school buses? When we lived 17 miles out of town back in Missouri, it was a real pain in the derriere if you forgot something and had to go to the grocery store to get it. You need a gallon of milk, you have to drive 17 miles to the grocery store. It's just such a culture of everybody going everywhere. And now I like to drive. That doesn't bother me so much. I don't like to drive long hours, and I don't like to drive very much in the dark because it makes me squinchy now. I can see fine in the dark, but it makes my eyes really tired. I'm looking forward to being able to get on public transportation and go somewhere if it's too far to walk to. But the thing I'm looking more forward to is if I get in my apartment or house and I realize, I forgot the milk. I know, or I forgot to get tomatoes, or I forgot something general. I know that I'll be able to step out my front door and walk a few blocks, or even just a block, to get what I need instead of having to get in my car and drive to go get it. It takes up such a huge chunk of time, and people talk so much about slow living in Europe and in places like France, and I understand why, because what you're doing every time you go out your door, you've got intention to either take a walk, go to a cafe and have lunch, go to the local market and buy things. That I know that France is also having problems with that, and I want to acknowledge that. You don't try to cut people's budgets and cut their holidays and then act like, let them eat cake, like you're having your Marie Antoinette moment. But they're striking because they see French culture fading away. They see these big box stores and these wealthy places set up strip malls outside of towns, and governments are not governments, but they're trying to draw people to go get their piece of home and a lawn, a garden for you and your children. You can have a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home outside of town because it's less costly, and then you can have a garden of your own. And look, we have this big giant Monoprix grocery store right here in this big strip mall for you. So the French are becoming more and more upset that some of their town centers, especially in the less touristed places, are emptying out, and they're losing storefronts, just like we did in our country in the 50s and 60s. When I was young, that was when suburbs started to happen, when people were just like, I want to get out of the city and the urban centers and get out into the countryside. Local stores and local markets are having to raise their prices because they're getting fewer customers, because those customers are going out to the big box grocery stores. The food is lower quality, but it's cheaper, and that draws people who don't make enough money to keep up with their spending, or be able to pay their rent or purchase a home. They see all this happening, and so there is unrest. And I have to hand it to them. The French people know how to strike. They know how to protest, and they know how to stand up for themselves. I kind of wish that this country paid as much attention to its people when we protest, but right now we're not in a great situation either. The U.S. was founded on different ideologies. In France, communities needed to be socially connected, and they needed to be tight, and many of them needed to be walled. They needed to be able to fight off invaders, and they needed to know their neighbors and want to take care of each other for those reasons. In the U.S., it was like this whole different, we want space and we want to spread out and go west, young man. And they had their whole manifest destiny, which, was their excuse to wipe out Native American populations. But it was a different mindset, aside from the general racism and horribleness. I'm behind a school bus now, so I'm stopping and waiting for the students to get let out at their street. It's just a different culture here, and it always was. People wanted to spread out and have their 40 acres and a mule and their big land, and the wagon trains going west to Oregon, and all of those things were what people strove to do. They wanted to be free, and they wanted to have their piece of the pie, and they wanted all of these things. White people, I mean. It began as a completely different and strange culture to Europe, and it continued to be just a different cultural mindset, where people began to think more about their individual freedoms than their collective freedom. And that's one of the reasons we're in some of the political situations we're in, and this country's so divided, because there are certain groups of people out there who want freedom for themselves, regardless of who else it hurts. Anyway, off topic. Driving culture here is big. I'm just tired. It's expensive. Driving culture is expensive. It's expensive to have to leave your house every single day for something. There's always something that we have to go and get every single day. Home again. It just becomes difficult to map out time, especially for somebody like me who has trouble focusing enough to do my things in a day. To go to the post office, for example, when I have to leave in the middle of the day, it throws off my schedule, and I have to remind myself, okay, this is what I need to be doing now. This is what I've done already. These are the things I need to get to. And it throws off your whole schedule, and it throws off my vibe, okay? Now we're watching the news. I fully expect a lot of this unrest is probably going to result in more bureaucracy for people coming in, but I'm not sure. I think the French are still fine with immigrants coming in. I think what makes them unhappy is when we come in and our groups together completely start changing French culture. I was reading someone's Substack the other day. She was talking about this very thing, about how French people are very upset about losing their culture. French culture is changing thanks to all of this mass-produced, fast food culture. The French people, I think she said something like there used to be 400,000 cafes. Cafes are distinctly French. There used to be about 400,000 cafes, and now it's down to about 20,000 cafes in France. And that's really sad, because that's the whole culture that people have well, they've cultivated it for centuries. This culture of socializing around food or a cup of coffee or something of that nature, and things are changing. People are being encouraged to move out to the burbs, and they're creating suburbs and urban sprawl where there used to be just nice countryside, where people used to live in the towns and then go out into the countryside to do nature things. Now they're moving out and buying cars and driving to the big giant grocery stores. I think there's even a Costco or two in France now. Maybe more than that. I think that we really need to look at that here in America. I don't think that things are going to change anytime soon, for sure. But I really hope that the French people can get through it more easily and in a better way and hang on to their culture, because it's a beautiful one. And we fully intend to invest in the economy of French local people wherever we live. We don't intend to drive out to the big giant box grocery stores and to the mass marketed stuff just to get a little bit of a sale. We intend to purchase fresh produce from people who live close to us and who market close to us and who have small farms or small businesses that they need to support. I intend to have my retreats in the place where I live and feed the economy that way by bringing people who have money to spend and who want to support local businesses, and even by supporting a local boutique hotel, for example, with booking it out and those kinds of things. We want to contribute to the French economy. And I feel like my business that I'm bringing with me will help me to contribute to French economy. Driving culture was supposed to be what I was talking about. And in my rambles, I just feel as if our whole lifestyle will change because we're not having to get in our car and drive 40 minutes or an hour and a half to see friends who live near but not that near, or who live in a city nearby but there's a huge amount of traffic between here and there. I'm looking forward to having community that we don't have to travel to all the time, that we can just walk and meet and become part of a community. I've always, since I was little, wanted that, to be a part of a community of people, not just a town full of people going about their business or stopping to chit chat, but a community of people who really want to help each other and support each other. And I know that there are problems everywhere we go, so don't come at me with that. Or come at me with that, but be reasonable about it. I just am really looking forward to a walking culture and to the public transportation, especially those cities in France who are working on clean public transportation. A lot of the trams, etc., run on clean energy. And I'm looking forward to not contributing to climate change by not having a car anymore. I mean, it's just us, it's just one little group of people, but it's a lot of people in places where there's good access to different kinds of transportation. I'll go from paying probably $500 a month on average between my car payment and getting gas and car maintenance. I will be down to paying $75 a month or less on monthly public transportation. Just being in a place where I can walk out my door and not have to get in the car and fight traffic is going to be such a relief, especially in an age where there are so many people out there not paying any attention at all to where they're going or what they're doing. Their faces are in their phones while they drive. They're texting people while they drive. It's just not safe out there on the roads anymore. And yes, sometimes public transportation fails. Recently, there was a terrible trolley crash in Portugal that killed a lot of people, I think 17, and then there were many more injuries. I can't remember the exact numbers, but so yes, those things happen too, but they're much fewer and farther between than car accidents from people not paying attention. Anyway, I hope you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. I hope this wasn't too entirely all over the place. I hope what I've said makes sense once I've edited out all the crazy. So don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.